is I would love for you to tell me your name and how to spell it out, and I guess your connection to Megan and to David, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So go ahead and tell me who you are.
Kelly Starnes.
And how do you know David and Megan?
I knew David first. I'd known him for quite some time. When he first got out of the Marines and come back is when I'd met him because he was going to college. And he was a pretty decent guy. And then it was, I don't know, a year or two later is when I'd met Megan. And the first time I'd met Megan, I was out there in my ceramic shop and they come up there and Megan came up to me and I'd never met her before. And she said, "Will you go for a walk with me?"
Oh, really?
And I thought that was strange, which David was right on her. We didn't go for a walk and I didn't find out what was going on about that until, well, days later. Because it just got progressively worse with her, the way, or with him, the way he treated her. And, well, they ended up just quit coming around here pretty much. Like I say, they got me my dog just, I think it was 2 days before she went missing the first time. And, I don't know what happened to him, but something flipped in him.
Kind of describe him before, though. What was he like? I mean, you were friends, so...
Yeah, he was a college guy. He was outgoing, real personable, excited about life. He just started college. I think it was at Manhattan. I'm not positive, but I think it was in Manhattan.
Okay.
But he was a real good guy. I didn't see him a whole lot because he was, of course, Manhattan's clear northwest Kansas or East Kansas. And he'd stop by here every, I don't know, month or two and just say hi. And was a real nice guy, but I don't know what happened to him.
Was there a specific way you met him or whatever?
I met him through just another friend.
Okay.
John Ketch, I believe was his name.
Okay.
In fact, his brother was one that they thought was involved in it because I guess him and Megan had maybe taken some guns or something along that lines. But nothing ever become of that, so I don't even know that kid.
Sure. Well, you know, I figure why don't we kind of, I guess, dive into this. I mean, the way I found you was through this 911 call that you made at one point.
Okay, now you realize these are two different instances.
Yes.
Okay, they're a year apart.
Yes. And what I was hoping to do is part of the story will be focused on kind of the history of David and law enforcement and everything, and the stuff that we can answer.
Right, I didn't know anything about the law enforcement until later, way later in the game. You know, when Megan went missing, it was the first time I knew about any law being involved with him.
So, can you walk me through that day? So you made a call to 911. Why did you call them?
Megan had come here. She got dropped off by a friend, and she said that they were having problems. She was leaving him, and she needed some money. Well, I was painting my bathroom at the time, so I hired her to paint the bathroom. And David came by here about 10 or 15 minutes later, and I was outside there in the driveway. And he looked up there and seen her in the window and went up there and talked her into going outside and just talking to him. So I went in there and took over the painting job. Next thing I know, she's screaming for help, and they're doing 100 miles down the road. And he's got a hold of her through the window, and she's outside the pickup, and they're screaming down the highway. And by the time I got in my car and got my gun and went down there, he was locked in his house, and the law wouldn't help get him out because they said it was against his civil rights.
So you followed them?
Absolutely. That's when the 911 calls were made, was between here and his house.
Why would you follow them?
She was screaming for help, and she was laying on the outside of the pickup, and he was doing 100 miles an hour down the road, and well, that wasn't going to be no good. But the cops would not help me whatsoever. There was 3 different counties down there surrounding his house, wouldn't do anything because he wouldn't answer his door. And I'm an eyewitness to this, and they would not believe me for anything.
Yeah.
And they ended up running me out of there, and they didn't do anything. They just complained that they weren't on there with their families at dinner and stuff like that, all the Rice County sheriffs. They botched it something fierce. Every one of them over there, I have nothing but unrespect for. They did not do their job whatsoever. That's how I met them. I put it on Facebook that they didn't do their job. That's how I met them. So they came over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever happened then? I mean, like, so she was taken.
I got her back by myself because they would not help. The cops wouldn't help. It took about 2 days, but I got her back and sent her to her real dad and stepmom in Illinois. I overnighted her up there.
Yeah.
And then she came back about a year later for a visit, and he snagged her up on the 4th day, and here we are. But I don't know. I just don't know. He's evil.
I think it's so interesting to look at the case and to see what happened and what didn't happen. I was listening to the 911 tape, and I mean, you know, it seemed like the dispatchers were a little confused with where to go to. I don't think maybe they understood that you were going or you had gone to.
I went straight to Brian Treaster's house, which was the undersheriff in Rice County. I went straight to his house from here.
Yeah.
And
he lived like right next door, pretty close.
2 blocks.
Okay.
Yeah. And he wasn't doing anything. He was having a cookout with his family, which this, to me, would have preceded that, but it didn't in his eyes. But the cops that came over did nothing but complain about having to mess with this again and again. And then they told me to quit searching by myself because they thought I was going to go missing, but yet they still wouldn't do anything against him. It was just, everybody knew what was the outcome was going to be, that he was going to kill himself because they were going to push him until he killed himself, which, whatever, it is what it is, but he was an evil person at the end, especially. Anybody that killed her dad, man. And he went there, I know he went there with the intentions of killing him, because he had just testified against him in federal court against him firearms, like the Friday before.
Yeah, really close before.
And there was one time he testified and got David's kid taken away from him because David held either his wife or his girlfriend, and I don't know if he was married or not, but held him at gunpoint, him and his baby at gunpoint for 4 days because she was going to leave him. And his dad testified against him to get his kids taken away. He has 1 kid at least. I don't even know if it's a boy or girl. I don't know. But David himself told me that.
That's so complicated. So sad, too.
And then the guy that's missing in Great Bend, that Charles McHenry,
Yeah.
the day that this all happened here, David, 30 seconds before he come in and got Megan, he told me he just pistol whipped that guy for giving her a ride down there to get her stuff the night before. And
There's always been rumors about.
Well, I'd called Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers wouldn't even take any information from me, my name or anything. Told me to call somebody else. And they gave me the number to the Great Bend Police Department, and they had nothing at all to do with this case. But that's who they referred me to.
How does that make you feel to?
I feel really let down by the system. I'll tell you what, the government is not, or the law enforcement isn't for help protect and serve anymore. It's not about that at all. It's go get them and get all the money you can out of them is all it is for them anymore, it seems like. They failed miserably on this case. I mean, miserably.
It's just, I don't know, you hear about that, and like from my understanding, and I'll admit, law enforcement so quiet about anything with Megan, anything with David, but from my understanding, so taken from here, and then Megan told them, I wasn't hurt or I wasn't taken or something like that.
But that was with her being in his company,
presence.
yes, because they found she told me that he tied her up in a straitjacket and stuff like that. They found the straitjacket when they searched his house and her clothes. And then they found like 24 pipe bombs with handwritten instructions from him how to detonate them. Well, he knows how to detonate them, so they weren't for him. That would make them for sale, I would think.
Yeah.
But I think he was going to go down pretty hard for that anyway. But, you know, when he was on the high-speed chase from Ellenwood to Alden, he tried to run over 2 cops, and they dropped those charges, and his sentence on that was habitual driving unrestricted or revoked.
Like that, yeah.
How do you do that? He tried to kill 2 cops. How do you get that habitual driving on suspended?
Well, then he did later attempted to with the sheriff and his undersheriff. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just wild to me. My concern with anything with David Madden, and it's I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things that since I don't know all the info, I don't know, how right or wrong I am with it. But like, I look at it and I'm like, gosh, they've had these run-ins with him.
Yeah, over and over and over.
You would think that based on that, and like for example,
Well, he was absconded at that point, that he shot the cops.
I mean, like, it's just, you think something would have been done before. For example, I mean,
If they would have listened to me and not just blew me off, this wouldn't have happened
Yeah.
a year before. But none of them would believe me that this happened. I was an eyewitness. They didn't care. They flat ran me out of Alden and told me don't come back down there.
Because your call was about a year before she disappeared.
It was exactly a year
So,
before.
I mean, it's just.
That's the first time that she disappeared.
And from my understanding, and I'm still digging into the paperwork and stuff, because again, they're limited on anything they can give
Right.
me. But like, that might have been like the first, at least one of the first documented, maybe acts of violence. or
No, I don't
something.
think so, because when I was down there at Treaster's house, I heard him tell the Barton County Sheriff on the phone that it's the guy that's always having the trouble with the girl at the cafe that they've all keeps getting called on. So I know this wasn't the first incident.
But you would think, like, if they have that history, if they have that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, domestic violence victims, they're not going to speak out.
Right.
And so, especially if they are within the presence of, the
Right.
accused.
He came here to get her purse the following day, and he had a 7mm rifle, and threatened me. And I told him, I said, "You're not taking that purse from here." I said, "I'll give it to her when I see her personally. Period." I said, "Flat out, you are not taking anything from here." And he left, and he went and got her and brought her back, and you could just tell something was up. But I went ahead and gave it to her.
Yeah,
But he was a control freak.
it sounds like it.
Yeah,
So-
when things didn't go his way, he lost his temper in a heartbeat. It just,
I wonder what really set him off, because from my understanding, good upbringing, good family.
I've heard nothing bad about their family whatsoever.
And, he seemed, from my understanding, fine, and then just something.
Well,
something along the
Somebody
way.
said that something happened to him in the 11th grade, that he was normal up until then, and then something happened and he become like this. Now, when I met him was way after he was out of school,
Yeah.
and he seemed like a really decent guy. I mean,
Yeah.
it looked like he had it going on, he was upbeat, he was a go-getter, and then I don't know what happened to him.
And Megan, I mean, even though you had limited interactions with her
Right.
compared to him, I mean.
Right.
Megan,
Yeah, I
she
didn't know her
seemed-
very
she
long.
seemed-
She was a real bubbly girl, real fun. Yes, she was a blast.
She seemed like a sweet girl. I mean, I don't know
Right.
her, but just
I
looking at
didn't know her
pictures
very
and
well.
everything, Yeah.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, that's.
But I know when she came back for the visit a year later, her mom brought her over here, and so I'd only met her mom one time.
Yeah.
But I don't know, they seem to get along fine, but from what I've read, that's not the case. But I don't know her mom.
Yeah, I don't know either. So it's just one of those things that, like I said, I feel